Today on the podcast, I have Becky Feigin, and I'm excited to introduce her to you and to have this conversation. We have a really exciting and I feel like important conversation that we are planning on having. So I'm so happy that you're here and I'm happy that you are going to experience this with us. Becky is a multiple six-figure business coach who focuses on helping her clients create sustainable income through building a simple and aligned business model. She leverages her background in digital marketing, holistic knowledge of business, and NLP certification to support her clients. She also was recently married, so congratulations on that. So happy for you. You also have a dog and you like to read and watch a show. So tell me about your dog. Okay, let's talk about the marriage. Congratulations on the marriage. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And let me hear about your dog.
She is adorable. Her name is Sage. She is going to be 6 in October. I rescued her back when I lived in Kentucky right after graduating. Well, no, a little bit after graduating college. And she's a firecracker. She's a hound mix. She's got a very loud personality, but she's also a couch potato at the same time. And I
Okay.
just adore her.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. And do you have a favorite show that you like to watch right now?
Oof, a favorite show right now. I've been reading a lot more, but I
Okay.
can't help but watch The Bachelorette.
Amazing. I actually didn't even know The Bachelorette was still going, but serious kudos to them for 175 seasons of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. That's amazing, right?
I
They
know,
have
it's crazy.
that's awesome. Do you have a favorite book that you'd like to share right now?
Ooh, a book I just read that was really good is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I'm
Okay.
really into thrillers, but thrillers can be it's hit or miss, but this one was just like everything I needed in a thriller. It was so good.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Is there anything else that you'd want the listeners to know about you?
No, I think that you did a really great job wrapping it all up into a nice little bow.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us. And as you mentioned, you are a coach. I know there's a lot of coaches out there, and there's a lot of coaches that listen to this podcast. Something that sticks out to me in like in your bio, in your introduction, is the word aligned. Right? I am so
Mhm.
big on creating a business that is in alignment with your life because I've been in this situation where my business was thriving and successful and all of those things, but there was absolutely no alignment with my life. It was working against me, against my life. And that's a really terrible place to be in because you're like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be success. Everyone told me this was success. And this feels like failure, right? This feels terrible. So I love that you have included that in the work that you do and also the NLP certification. Why don't you tell the listeners? I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so NLP is neuro linguistic programming. The certification went into that, went into life coaching, emotional freedom techniques, which is a tapping process, and a bunch of different modalities. And basically, it allows you to tap into the subconscious to work through mindset blocks, to work through imposter syndrome, different doubts that are coming up. And I noticed with my clients that a lot of mindset things would come up. So I wanted to get a certification to better support them. And now I'm able to leverage that to further the transformation that my clients are able to get from working together.
Right. And I think as a coach, you definitely see that the struggles that people face in their business so much is what's going on in their mind, right? It's like we have so
Yes.
many things going on in our mind and so many doubts and so many things that hold us back from doing the things that we want to do or that we believe that we can do or that we need to do, right, to be successful. And so I love that you've included that into the work that you do. I would love to get into this conversation of growth with you and kind of talk about maybe a season of growth that stands out to you personally, like in your own life and business, what it looked like, what it felt like, and what you've kind of learned, the takeaways that you have to share with the listeners.
Yeah, I would love to dive into that. So I feel like for me, it's hard to pinpoint exactly the season of growth because it's really this growth that we wanted to talk about today. It's really all encompassing over the entire 5 years that I've had
Yes.
my business. But to start it out, I started my business at a time where I was only 23 years old. And when I decided to go into this, I was really into the idea of, running a business that worked for me, time freedom, all those things. But more than anything, money. I was so excited at the thought of money. And back in, people still talk about it to this day, and they talk about money a lot to this day, but it was very, very, very prevalent online in 2018, 2019, talking about, make your first 6 figures in your first 6 months of business. You need to be making 10K months. If you're not making 10K months by month 3 in your business, you're doing something wrong. Like, there were always all these messages coming out. And so I was constantly getting down on myself if I wasn't reaching those milestones. I was obsessed with making this money. And I was just really almost like a one-track mind thinking about money. It was important to me to provide value to my clients. It was important to provide impact and all those things. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to figure out ways to make more money and more money. And like, my entire personality almost was surrounded around this idea of like, am I good enough or am I not good enough based on this money? And then my whole life started to build around, well, and even when I was having good months in my business, I got to a point in my business where I was making 5-figure months consistently for almost 2 years. And even during that time, it was never enough because I was constantly chasing more, chasing more, chasing more. And I was turning down like time to hang out with friends. I wasn't planning trips. I wasn't doing anything. I just was like, I need to make more money. And I'd say, when I make this amount of money, then I'll be able to do this thing. And this was truly, it's like almost sad to look back on. This was like my entire personality. And then probably within the past year and a half, it started to hit me like, money's not everything. Yes, money's great. I love money. I really do. I will always love money, and like having enough to not have to ever worry. That's amazing. And the fact that running a business can give you that space is so awesome. And that shouldn't be the thing that we're focusing on, because when we focus on just money, then we're not creating the life that we wanted to live. We're not creating an aligned business that supports us living that life we wanted to live. So I've grown so much because I've realized that that's not the only thing. And I think that it's such an important growth process to go through. And again, like, by no means am I saying that money is bad or it's bad to want money,
Right.
but it's finding a way to want money, from a place of, this is the lifestyle I want to live, and this is the money that's going to provide this lifestyle for me. So it's kind of shifting that perspective and being able to shift that perspective into like, my top priority isn't how much money I have, but is being able to live this lifestyle, has completely shifted like my day-to-day happiness, to be honest, and has allowed me to live more and not overly obsess in my business in an unhealthy way.
I remember we had a friend who was a business owner, and they had this big, beautiful house, and they had built all these like custom things, and there was a pool, and there was like this sauna room, and there was this gym, and there was like all this stuff. And I'll never forget the time we went over to see the home, and we were walking through the home, and he's like showing us all these things and all these fancy features and all these things, like, right, everything that you could ever want in a home. And we got close to the end of the tour, and he said, it's just a shame that I'll never have time to enjoy any of it. And in that moment, I was like, I will never live that life. I refuse to work so hard to have the things and no, too bad. I can't even enjoy it. Right. And I love that when we focus on the kind of life that we want to have, the time that, like, the intention of where we want to spend our time, where we want to spend our energy, what we want our day-to-day life feel like, we still can include the income. We still can include the goals and we can still include those things because the money is what supports a lot of that. Right. And it naturally happens because it's a part of what we're doing. But when the focus is in one direction, there will always be a lack, because like you mentioned,
Exactly.
it was never enough. It was like, okay, cool. Like I made 10 grand this month. Well, I want to make 12 grand next month. So what am I going to do? Instead of like the ease of letting it all work together for the greater good of your like sanity, of your health, of your happiness, of your relationships, all the things.
Exactly. Exactly. And I find that when we're putting such an emphasis on the money and that's not good enough, I need more, that's not good enough, I need more, there comes a point, like for a while, for example, with me, for a while, I was able to ride that wave. I was able to say, I want more and make more. I want more and make more, or at least stay like consistent.
Yeah.
Then you hit a point where you're like, what am I doing this for? It's never enough. And you tend to crash because you've been pushing yourself so hard that you get yourself into a state of burnout, which is what happened for me. And that's kind of when I had this realization of I need to shift my perspective. And when you create this, when you sit down and say, I'm going to recreate my business from the lifestyle perspective and figure out what I want my lifestyle to be. First of all, you might realize that you didn't even need the money that you were trying to make. Like you could have been making half of that and been more
Like,
than
what do
fine
you
with the
need it
lifestyle.
for?
Exactly. So there's that piece. And then the other piece is that when you sit down and realize, I would say 9 times out of 10, you then look at the business you've created and you realize that it is not ever going to allow you to live the actual life you want to live because you've built a business solely to make more money, not to work for the lifestyle that you want.
I completely agree with that. And I've had a lot of outside voices that have pressured me in certain ways in my business of like, oh, why don't you scale like this? And why don't you do this? And I was like, I don't want to manage more. Like managing more means that it costs me something. And that's my time. That's my energy. That's my, if people can't show up, then I'm the one who has to go do, the more you have, the more you manage. And so I think that's a really great point is like there comes a time where you should choose what you want to manage, what type of business, how much of the business do you want to feel like, how much time is that going to take? How much of your energy, what is it going to look like if something happens and you have to step in fully if you don't have employees so that's a really great point. And sometimes how like when you'll like you would like fight with your sister or your brother and you go so far down the road and then you stop for a second and you're by yourself and you would never admit this, but you're like, I actually don't even know what we're fighting about. Like, I know we're fighting, but like, wait, what were we fighting about again? And I feel like that's kind of true and the same for like money. Sometimes when you're like so focused on like, I got to make more money. I want to make more money. And then all of a sudden you're like sitting there and you're just in the grind and you're so focused on it. And then you're like, wait, what do I need it for? Like, what am I, I'm sure we can all figure out ways to spend money, but it is also true that when you make more money, you tend to just start buying more expensive things. And so there is this parallel of like, it's like, okay, so what kind of life do you want to live? And my friend Richie Norton, he is unbelievable at this. He has some great books about this. He was on the podcast and talked about this, but when he works with the clients, it's the same thing. It's like, what kind of life do you want to live? That's like the very beginning of the questions. Like, what do you want your life to look like? Cool. Let's create your life. And then we're going to create your business to work within your life instead of the opposite that we all believe is like, we're going to work. And then we're going to really enjoy our life when we're 60. But like, what if we're not alive? Right?
Exactly. I think that it totally needs to shift. And I have seen a big shift recently in a lot of people that I follow online of more and more people talking about this, but this is the direction that it needs to go because otherwise it just like breaks you down, especially because with, all the new social media coming out, especially with TikTok. And then when the pandemic hit, so many young people started businesses, even people that like are choosing to start a business instead of go to college, which that's awesome for them. But then they're so young, if they're being taught at such a young age, you just need to do this, you need to do that, you need to build this is what you want, even though they're not taking the time to actually acknowledge if it's what they want. Next thing you know, they're 25 and they're like, what have I created? Like, I don't even have a life. I've missed like, not necessarily that that age of like 18 to 25 is the prime of your life, but I feel like a lot of people think so. And it's like, I missed all of that fun time that I could have been having.
It sounds like I think that like time of life, there's a lot more freedom typically to kind of just explore and find out who you are and all of that. And so if you're so like checked in on a business and making that money, then I think that's the distraction that it is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's not to say don't start the business. It's
Oh,
to say
not at all.
start the business, but do it from the different perspective. Look at it first as like, what do I want? Because even when I started, I had people telling me, you've been in business for this long, you're making this much, you should have a virtual assistant, you should do this, you should be hiring this person, you should be hiring that person. And 5 years down the line, I'm like, you know what? I just really want a simple business that can make, like, yeah, I want to make a couple hundred a year, like, but honestly, I could do that with a simple business. Maybe down the line I have a virtual assistant, but like, I don't need you don't necessarily need a massive team to be able to make a pretty good amount of money. And there's also nothing wrong with wanting to scale beyond that, but it's just asking yourself, what do you want? How much do you want to put into this? And is it really important for you to create this massive empire where you're noticed everywhere you go and all these things? Or is this just somebody else's dream that has you've kind of like absorbed that dream for yourself and it's not even necessarily what you want?
Well, and I totally agree with that. And I look back at my own entrepreneurial experience, and honestly, I never had a conversation about this at all. Like I wasn't necessarily like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice everything to make more money. I literally was just like, oh, if you want to have a successful business, then you just put your head down and you just work really hard and you just meet everyone's deadlines and you just do whatever you got to do to get the work, to keep the work, to keep working. And all of a sudden I found myself and I was like, I have created a monster. Like there was no intention. There was no, and I wasn't doing anything bad or wrong. I just literally didn't know better. And all of a sudden I was suffering and my, like, I feel like I was, disconnected from my life, from my relationships, from myself. And I was like laying in the bathtub and I was like, I can't do this forever. Like, I don't know what has happened here. Like I created this, but I never had anyone say to me, and I never heard this conversation of like, oh, you can choose what it looks like. You can choose and make decisions differently. You can push your deadlines back for people. You can only accept so much work. Like your business will only continue to grow if you are healthy and well. It might grow and
Mm-hmm.
it might burn to the ground. And it's funny. Like I used to make a joke at work all the time of like, burn it to the ground. Just burn it. I was like, burn it, let it burn enough where we could just get some great insurance money, but don't let it ruin the neighbors' businesses. Like make sure we stop it by then, and actually just yesterday I was there and I said, I made a joke about like, because it was so hot and there was like dust and stuff. And I have a screen printing company. And I was like, gosh, this could like start on fire. Like we got to get this cleaned up. And then I was like, wow, I haven't made a joke about burning it to the ground for a really long time. And to me, that was success. To me, the fact that I have
Yeah.
been like, please burn this thing down is success. And it is 100% because I don't even know, 7 years ago, I was like, okay, stop what we're doing here. Everything needs to stop right now. And I got to look around and I got to figure out what I want my life to look like and what I want it to feel like. And what I want my days to
Mm.
feel like, what I want to, what's living, not just having priorities and not living from them, but actually truly living from my priorities.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love that you were like, that you're saying that your definition of success came from you realizing you've not said the burn it to the ground joke. Like, and I think that's just like so amazing for people to hear because it just shows that like success can look so different for so many people. Like for me, success is gonna, I mean, I do feel successful now, but it's like there's those milestones of like, hitting different places. And for me, it's like just having that free time consistently, which I do have right now. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lie, but like just having more of it and like being able to just like, because for me, when I realized that things weren't working, I kind of did burn it to the ground. And I was like, let's start fresh. Let's shift this perspective. I'm focusing on the wrong things. Like I need to redo this. And with that, it takes time to build something back up. And so like getting to a place again where I am back at higher income months, but not like chasing it, but higher income months and simultaneously like not on 8 hours of calls a day, which is what my life used to look like. That to me is like, I've made it. Like I'm doing this and I'm not like transferring hours of my day every day to being on calls constantly. that's it for me. And so that's so different than when I first started. I was like, oh, $25,000 months, that's it for me. I had no idea why. I didn't even know. I would try and like do something with that money. And at the time, again, I was 23 years old. I didn't know what was that money going to go towards. I didn't even have any idea.
Yeah.
But there was just an arbitrary number that I decided that was when I would be successful. And
Mhm.
so it's just figuring out, like, realistically, what do you actually want? What's actually going to do it for you? And even like with all my clients, the first thing we do is a lifestyle audit of figuring out, like, what is it that you want?
Yeah.
What is that dream life for you? Is it like traveling every year? Is it sitting out on a farm somewhere and looking out at your cat? Like, what is it? And then what are you going to need to create that? And then that's what we build the business around. So similar to what you were saying before.
Yeah. I remember when I heard an interview with Mark Cuban, and he said he was talking about a man who won the lottery, and he was like, and he said, I just need to be very clear on this. Wherever you're feeling right now, money will just increase those feelings, right? So it's like, if you are anxious, more money is just going to bring you more anxiety. If you are depressed, more money is going to bring you more depression. If you are truly happy, money will bring you more happiness. If you are truly, at peace and truly like living a life that feels good, more money will bring you more good opportunities. And I thought that was so fascinating. And I could see how, that could absolutely be true. And this goes back to create a life that feels really good. And then that's fine if you want to work and you want to believe in and you want to chase more, like have more money come to you. But it's like, get to a place that feels good, because in the hustle, in the anxiety, if you're getting more money, you're just feeling more anxious. You're just feeling more anxiety. It just heightens all of those emotional states that you're already in.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've experienced that 100% for myself, where there were times where things were really good and I was really happy about the more money. But then there were times where I was like, I need more, I need more, I need more. And like being so stressed about it. And nothing was good enough.
Yeah.
Truly. Like I just continue to feel down or continue to feel like anxious or whatever it was. And like I've been saying, like nothing was ever good enough. It always needed to be more.
Mm. Yeah, that's so powerful, and it's something really to think about. One question I have for you is, like, I think a struggle sometimes is when you are making a lot of money, there's a lot of, if the people close to you know about it, there's a lot of celebration that happens. Like, say your husband or fiance at the time, he knew how much money you were making, and you were like, he's like, wow, this is amazing, right? And that's nice of them to give you the support, and it's nice of them to encourage you. But then there's also like, okay, so will they be disappointed if I choose to make a little less money for a little more joy in my life, a little more free time, a little more, like, did you experience any of that?
So I'm really lucky in that, no, not really. I mean, there was a conversation of like, isn't working for me and things are going to slow down for a while before it can pick back up. And there are definitely hard dates. Like it's definitely hard accepting a slowdown and working through a slowdown when you were used to a different way of life, if you will. I will say that to an extent, like no matter how much I was making, even when I was making like a lot of money, because I was always stressed about it. I don't know, because this was before we like shared bank accounts and things like that. Like, I don't know that he totally processed how much I even had because I was always so stressed. So I think I acted like I had less than I actually had because I was like, it's not enough. It's not enough. So I think it honestly impacted me more than it impacted him, because
Right.
I'm the one that like saw that big number in my
Right.
bank account every month and knew I was more than okay. And then was like, I need to let it go. And like for me, letting it go meant like literally letting it all go for a while to just restart, because I didn't want to continue to run my business the way I was running it, which meant creating new offers, letting the offers go, letting the contracts break, like finish out, and then like not re-signing and like really having to reset. So it was like a really big, like a massive difference from what I was used to, but it was so necessary. And seriously, I feel more calm, more at peace now than I did when I was making 5 figures every single month. And I know that that will come back. And when it does, it's going to be like the most amazing thing ever, because I know like my mindset around it, my energy around it has changed so much.
Right. There's going to be the and in there, not just like financial success, but there will be financial success, emotional success, right? Mental success. And when all of those
Yes.
things come together, we all talk about, purpose. We all talk about
Mhm.
alignment. We all talk about, all those things. And that's really what it is when there can be a balance. Now, it doesn't have to be like this perfect balance all the time, right? There's going to be little seasons of where we have to put a little more effort into our physical self, or mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, right? It's not all even all the time, but when we know how to like calibrate that and get to like a place where it all feels good. That is success. That is alignment. And so I think that's a really
Yes.
powerful thing to think about and to share and to talk about this conversation. I wish that I would have had this conversation early on in my business, right? When there wasn't really a place where we were all talking about business. I mean, I started my business back in like 2004, 2005, so we were like, Blogspot didn't come around until 2006 for me. And so it's like, I didn't really even have, there wasn't like that support. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and so I think it's really cool that we can have these conversations for people who are in their business, like well into their business, and who are thinking to themselves, like, gosh, this is not what I wanted it to feel like. This is not what I wanted my life to look like. Like, I don't want to wait until I'm 65 to be able to enjoy my day-to-day life. I don't
Yeah.
want to have my family or my children remember me like stressed and overwhelmed and, anxious. And that is something that I was absolutely like guilty of. And like, I know that it had an effect on my children as they were watching me. They were like, I never want to have a job. I never want to have your work. I never want to, because it like
Yeah.
felt like a lot. And so it's important that we really take that time to self-reflect. So if there was someone right now listening and they're finding themselves like maybe caught up in this race of more and like money is the focus, what are some tips that you would have to get them to just like slow down, evaluate the situation, and kind of get back on a new path?
Yeah. I think the first thing is sitting down and like committing to sitting down and looking at things and asking yourself, okay, how much money, this is how much money I'm making, and I'm wanting more, but why? Like really just sitting there and asking yourself why, and figuring it out in the sense of like, what are my non-negotiables of what I want my life to look like? And am I providing that for myself right now? Am I creating enough free time to be able to do these things? Am I, you know, am I giving myself the space to even take the time to do these things, and getting really clear on like how you actually want to be living your life? Because I think that that's often overlooked. We don't even think about it. We just kind of like go with the motions of our day to day. And then we look back and it's like, what did I do this year? I'm not even sure. So sitting down and really asking yourself that and getting really, really clear on what you want your life to look like. And then asking yourself, where am I holding myself back right now? Is it the constant chase for money? Is it just spending way too much time on my business or whatever it is right now? Is the money that I'm making actually enough for the lifestyle I want to live? Like, am I looking like for more when realistically I already have what I need? Because I think that a lot of times you'll realize that you do. And oftentimes just doing this exercise, you'll be able to see like, oh, I have this for myself. And then of course, if you then realize the money can provide this lifestyle, but the structure of my business or how I show up in my business or whatever it is isn't allowing that, then that would have to be the next step of figuring out, okay, what am I going to shift? How am I going to shift things in order to give myself the space to live this life or whatever it is? So that I think is like honestly the biggest piece that will take time to figure out and to break things down. But first and foremost, it's just getting really clear with yourself about what you want and how you're going to be able to provide that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then going from there to kind of let it all work out so that you can get to a place where you do now have a business you're running that is in alignment with your needs and your wants.
I would also add the question that we could ask ourselves is like, am I being a good steward over the money that I do have? And
Mm.
because I actually think there was a time of my life, my business, where I was making great money, but the money actually almost felt like not dirty money. It felt like like the value of the money was so small because I knew what it represented. Like I knew that it
Mm.
represented like anxiety. It represented for me like time out away from my children. Like I wasn't even grateful for the money that was coming in because it was connected to those terrible feelings, emotions, and like so I think, okay, if I could have just stopped for a minute and I looked at the money and thought, okay, this, like, how can I be more, like, I want to be grateful for this money that I do have. And I want to make sure that I'm being a good steward over it. But I like didn't even, there was, because it didn't feel valuable to me, I was like, just like, get rid of it. Like, I don't even want to be intentional with how I spend this or where it's going or what, because it just didn't feel good. Right. So it's like, how can I, because maybe when we switch and we become a better steward over the money that we have, it goes farther. It provides more opportunities than we ever even imagined, right? Or and so like just getting in that good headspace of the money that is coming in can be super, super powerful. The other thing that I wanted to
Yeah.
add was I was talking to a friend and she has a very successful business, but she was talking about the fact that she had the pressure and the belief that she needed to create this business that would generate like generational like wealth, that it was going to be this company that she was going to sell for like millions and millions of dollars, and that it was going to create like this big, that's like the goal, right? There's like this goal sometimes, and the pressure when you're having this successful business, like, what are you going to sell? How are you going to sell it? Like, how are you going to da, 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 da? And she's like, all of a sudden I was like, wait, what am I doing? Like, we have a life that we love. We get to work from home most of the time. We get to spend time with our kids. We get to travel. She's like, maybe my business is actually creating a life for us. Maybe my business is not generational, but it is lifetime. It is like this experience. And so I think that was such an important conversation that I had with her, because I was like, wow, like there's options. It's not just this big, big thing. If you want success, if you want to create, like paying attention to what you're actually creating.
Yes. Yes. That's such a good point too.
Yes. Well, is there anything that you would add to the for the listeners on creating a life of alignment in your business, and getting to this place where making money can feel good, it can feel exciting, and it can also feel like in alignment with what you want your life to look like?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing is just to remember to always come back to the life you want to live. Like always bring it back to that. Don't lose the connection to that. And also don't play small with what you want. Like allow yourself to dream big with the life you want to create, because you can create it and you can build a business to provide all of that for you. So just like remembering that, and remembering that there's always like room for growth, space for like, yes, space for growth, room for growth. And as long as you stay connected, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I think it's so important to just like really ground this in, like stay, like, stay connected to that life you want to live, and don't lose sight of that, because when you lose sight of that, that's when the money kind of takes over and you get obsessive over that, and you start to almost like look down on yourself because it's never enough. So you don't want to let yourself get to that place. So just allow yourself to look at that lifestyle piece and plan everything around that, and make decisions based on that lifestyle you want to create.
Does this bring me closer to my goal of what I want my life to look like, or is it pulling me away? And that is a
Yeah.
it's like a simple question to ask, but I can see how it would be such a helpful tool. So thank you so much for sharing that. Becky, I have this thought of fire in her heart, peace in her soul. And I think this goes so perfectly along with what we've been talking about this conversation, because it's true. You can create an insanely successful, beautiful life. And that is the fire in your heart, right? It's that piece that is just like, let's do this. Like, I see this vision, I have this goal, this dream, but also the peace of your soul. And true success to me is when we have both, when we're able to have both of those things and not at the expense of one over the other. So what is something that is currently lighting your heart on fire?
Ooh, I love that question. Honestly, just like being able to connect back to my vision as like lighting my heart on fire so much, and like giving myself the space to like go outside and soak up the sun and like enjoy the warm weather. That is like everything for me. I love being outside. I love the nicer months. So like having a business that allows me to stop in the middle of the day and go outside and be outside is just like the best fire in my heart ever.
I love that. It's amazing. And what is something that you do to protect the peace of your soul?
Ooh, that I love that question too. Something that I do to protect the peace in my soul is really like with everything that I do, I ask myself, like, is this the best decision for me? Is this something that's going to serve me? Is this something that I want to do? Or am I doing this to make somebody else happy, to like look good, whatever it is? And I just really make sure that you know, I I prioritize my needs, and I, in the least selfish way possible, put myself first to take care of myself.
Well, when we are the best, when we are taken care of, when we are nourished, when we are well, then we are able to show up so much better for everyone else around us. And I think that's where
Yes.
that, where that lie is that just give, give, give of yourself. But then when you're not full, when you are not well, it's impossible to show up as the best version of yourself. So I love that
Yes.
you shared that. I think that's such an important message. And the reason why I like to ask these questions is one, for the guests, because I think it's cool to like reflect what's going on for you right now personally. But I also really want to remind all of you who are listening that I ask this question so that you stop for a minute and you also say to yourself, like, oh, what is like, do I have something that is lighting my heart on fire? Or if you're like, no, I actually don't know if I do, then what could that be? What, like, when's the last time I felt alive? When's the last time I felt excited? When's the last time I felt super passionate? And then tap into that and see what that could be for you. And then also just how important it is, daily to take time to protect that peace, because we live in a world that will take that peace so fast if we allow it to, right? It's like distraction, it is overwhelm, it is never enoughness, it is opportunities, so many things that will just like zap that peace right from our soul. And so it's we have to be intentional. And so I just hope that everyone listening takes the time today to go, how am I going to protect the peace of my soul today? Because it should be a priority. It's so important. But Becky, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your
Thank
experience with
you.
us. You are so lovely, so beautiful, and I'm just really grateful.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to be here.
Where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, I would say the best place to find me is on Instagram, and you can find everything else from there. And my Instagram is just Becky Feigin, my first and last name. And shoot me a message and let's have a conversation. I love talking to everybody over there. And yeah,
Amazing. Thank you so much.
thank you.